Disney is going to be offering discounts on Lightning Lane this fall. This despite the fact that apparently the company is doing so very, very well. We are going to see a big discount. You could now save hundreds on Lightning Lane passes this September, Vash. And we're going to talk about today on That Park Place. This comes to us from The Travel, written by Jasmine Gillette or Gillett. I'm not sure which one it is. Pick one of the two. A Walt Disney World vacation can prove to be very expensive. Yeah, no kidding. Especially with the parks using dynamic pricing models and charging for extra services like photography sessions. However, after losing out to a free-to-enter competitor for the title of Best U.S. Amusement Park, Disney is giving its visitors a chance to save on one of its most expensive add-ons and beat long wait times in the process. The price of its Lightning Lane Premier Pass is being slashed at all 4 Walt Disney World theme parks this September, potentially saving some visitors hundreds of dollars. Disney's Lightning Lane system currently has 3 tiers and is available across Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Animal Kingdom, and Hollywood Studios. The single pass covers 1 attraction per purchase, while the multi-pass allows guests to select multiple attractions, both reducing the amount of time thrill seekers have to spend in line. The Premier Pass allows guests to access the Lightning Lane for eligible attractions throughout an entire park for a day without having to make individual selections for each ride, aka it's the Universal Express Pass. The price for a Premier Pass fluctuates by park and date and has gained criticism since its launch in 2024 due to its high costs out of reach for many families. Despite this, the pass regularly sells out during high demand periods such as Christmas, spring break, and Thanksgiving, when prices are at their highest and lines are at their longest. This September, however, is shaping up to be a very different story. Disney's Lightning Lane Premier costs this September versus typical. Now, Magic Kingdom is typically $300 to $400, and you're going to get it for $299, which is a savings of $101 potentially. Epcot, $149, typically $169 to $249, a savings of $100. Animal Kingdom, $119, a savings of $129 to $199, a savings of $80. Hollywood Studios, $249, going to $269, which I'm sorry, $249 down from $269 to $349, which is a savings of $100. So all of these are like, these 3 are all lower, but the $299 versus the $300, that's a dollar difference. So, but when it comes to the typical high range, it would be a savings of about $100. So.
Well, I do believe when Magic Kingdom first debuted the Lightning Lane Premier Pass, I thought the minimum that they were saying it was going to be was anywhere between $319 to $329 or something. So the fact that they have lowered it considerably to $299, and we've seen, these various parks actually lower from their lows in terms of price elasticity, is extremely interesting, especially considering that remember we heard from Hugh Johnson, no, bookings are up in the summer of 2026. We'll be fine, and Q3.
And here's the thing, guys, but you're gonna see attendance numbers go up this fall. You're definitely gonna see it, and it's not because suddenly the fortunes have all turned around and people are flooding into the parks during the day. That's not going to be the case. The reason for it, Bash, is because of the hard ticket after hours events like Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, which essentially which always sells out and basically counts as double the attendance for Magic Kingdom for that day.
Yes, absolutely. There's no question about that. I think that's a really astute observation right there, because I think this is squarely within Q4, what we're seeing right now. And don't be deceived. I mean, it was extremely low there. And so if you do have a 1% or 2% incline, like you said, Marvin, brilliantly, I think that those incremental increases are coming specifically from these parties, and it might be why Disney has placed so much of an enhanced emphasis on these parties in the recent history right here.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at what it says here, at Magic Kingdom, the cost of the Premier Pass will fall to $299 on August 23rd. Now that is the lowest price point to date. It will then continue until August 25th, which is just for 2 days, before rising again to $329 on August 28th. Then, when September arrives, the Magic Kingdom Premier Pass will return to the price of $299 on the first Halloween party date of the month. Well, that also makes sense because you're not paying for a full day at that point. All right, so now suddenly this makes more sense to me, Mash, because you're paying $299 for a day where the Magic Kingdom closes at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock.
Right. So that's a fair point, right? So it's kind of like, okay, well, you're already getting a truncated day, so let's go ahead and set that price even lower. It's very, very interesting that even within their originally established pricing model for this particular product, they didn't actually factor that in before. Very, very interesting that they are factoring that in now, especially when the offerings of Magic Kingdom aren't that great to begin with.
I would say this is actually growth, because the Disney company of yesteryear would not have cared. It just charged you full price. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a fair point. So it's just a kind of an interesting evolution of this product. And look, I actually slightly disagree with this author right here. I believe that a product like this should be the only product available and sold within reason, because I think we've talked about this before, Marvin. It's just a worse experience when everybody is quote unquote special, right? Going off of that amazing, indelible Incredibles quote, right? If everybody's special, no one is. And so many people on the system tying up those lightning lanes and so forth. It actually backs up not just those lightning lane queues, but the standby queues as well, especially when an attraction goes down and so forth. So to have an item like Premier Lightning Lane, I think it should be the established standard, sold within reason, and then move forward right there. Originally, this was a product actually created for Disneyland back in the day. Walt Disney World adapted it, but even now they're having problems, which is interesting.
So this author says there are two major reasons why Disney World is cutting the prices of both its premier multi-lane passes. The first is Disney's Halloween party schedule, where regular day guests without tickets to the event will be forced to leave the park at 6 p.m. ahead of the evening's festivities. Yeah, 6 p.m. With fewer operating hours available than Disney appears to be adjusting the price. Again, something they have not done in the past. The second reason is, or at least not that I know of, the second reason is seasonal timing. The final week of August and the beginning of September are typically quieter periods at Disney. It can't get much quieter than it was in July. Otherwise, there'd be nobody there as families return home from vacations and children start school. So Disney Tourist Blog has written that for each of the last 3 years, the last week of August has had the lowest year-to-date crowds up to that point at Walt Disney World, with average wait times under 25 minutes and 1 to 10 crowd levels. So not much reason to buy Lightning Lane in that kind of crowd level, Vash. And honestly, this is historically true. I used to go, when I was a kid, we would always go the last week of August because schools up north are still out for the summer, but Florida schools are back in session. So they went back this week. Stupid kids. If line waits during the time of year are shorter, guests may not need to spend money on a Lightning Lane pass to avoid them. Yes, obviously. So lower Lightning Lane prices, they said, could make September a better time to visit Disney World. Now, September used to be the best time to visit Disney World. I mean, early September, especially like right around Labor Day, when all the kids would go back to school, that was the best time to go to Disney World. Because you walked on everything. You just had to avoid the Jewish holidays because the long weekend would then bring all the locals out. Yeah, because there are the Jewish high holidays in September. So yeah, Ash. So what do you think? Lowering the Lightning Lane, does it make it any better, or is this still like sticking in your craws? Like, this is a thing we used to get for free, and now, or not free, it was included in our price, and now we've sapped the value out of the Disney vacation by doing this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great look, right? And back in the day, it used to be, well, the company, from the company's standpoint, doesn't want to be perceived as nakedly greedy by offering these extra cost add-ons and having these extra cost services like Fast Pass and so forth. It was like, well, that's a bridge too far. Now, obviously, especially post-Chapek era, all of that is undone. All of that is like out the window. We got to make as much money as possible.
Yes, people used to recommend doing stuff like this, and I think Disney's response, especially in the Eisner era, was,
"You didn't." Well, of all the cheap, lousy ways to save a buck.
But once the Chapek era hit, and then the second Bob Iger era, it was all about bringing that money, no matter what.
No matter how the company's perceived and everything else. Now, I do think, if in fact you are going to be in Walt Disney World for a very short amount of time and you want to, make sure you hit your most favorite attractions and so forth, maybe this product makes sense, but honestly though, I think with the normal lightning lane you can do some really good damage, especially on those kind of 6-7 crowd level days right there. So do you necessarily need a product like this unless it's extremely packed and your schedule is extremely short? Doesn't quite make sense to me, especially for a family of 4 or anything like that. So even at these diminished price points, I just don't really necessarily see the value. Now, opposite can be said actually for Disneyland, and this is originally what the product was actually built for. Disneyland actually includes not only Disneyland Park, but Disney California Adventure. It's a one set price in which if you have a park hopper, you can benefit from both parks attractions right there. And if you are, have a truncated schedule maybe in the LA or Los Angeles, or I should say Southern California area, maybe that actually makes sense for you. And I think there is some pretty good value right there, because I think that includes something like 20 to 25 attractions or something like that. So pretty decent value. Again, expedited time window, and maybe that doesn't make sense for a family of 4. But the problem with Lightning Lane is that it's a little bit too accessible. And so that's where we get the huge saturation levels. We've heard on earnings calls before that 50% opt-in on any one day at Walt Disney World. And it's like, that's a little bit too high. Mm-hmm. Can we have some moderation with that? So if Lightning Lane Premier was the only option available, I could say, that's a valuation change right there. And especially if it was limited in quantity, maybe that actually makes sense. But with the already existing Lightning Lane product, or Lightning Lane multi-plat pass and single pass, I don't think it quite makes sense.
Well, there you have it, guys. Lightning Lane going to be a little bit cheaper this fall, but it's up to you whether you think it still has any kind of value.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.